From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Let's start with the scary stuff. So a lot of people, your faithful correspondents included, have been working from home for the majority of the pandemic. Many people have. At first, it was a safety measure for a lot of folks. And then eventually, for many folks, it evolved into a personal preference. I mean, before we begin, I think that's a good place to check in. We don't talk about it too much with each other because we hang out all the time. But what has you guys' experience been working from home primarily? I know we've all been popping in the office every so often.
Yeah, I do like the occasional office pop just to change things up. And they've been restocking the snacks again, which is a sign that civilization is returning to normal to some degree.
Nature's healing.
It is. I don't mind it. I think we've gotten used to the flow of doing things this way. I do like doing it in person every now and again, but I really quite enjoy, I have a separate space, so I think that makes a big difference, because in my last house I did not, and that was not fun at all, which is why I moved. But in general, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I think setting my own hours has become a new thing. It's always kind of been a thing for us at this company, but actually having a place that I can walk a couple steps to and get some work done rather than drive, in my case, it was 15 to 30 minutes to a place, get work done, then come home. It's really changed my ability to work on different kinds of hours. Seriously, and actually, it's weird, and hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this, but to be able to take an hour during the day to actually get an errand done, like go to a place that's not open when I'm usually not working.
Absolutely.
And then work an extra hour later in the night or something. I think a lot of people have been taking advantage of that. It's just, the question is how much of an advantage is an individual taking with their workday hours? That's what employers are asking.
Yeah, there we go.
But we're in a results-driven space, right? Not to sound too, producerly. I mean, I think it's going to be clear to our employers if we're not pulling our weight. So at the end of the day, no one's policing exactly how we spend every second of our time, which I think for some people, continuing to work from home is a problem, because there's all this kind of nanny state technology that's being implemented that's policing how many clicks people are logging on their keyboards and all that kind of stuff. To me, that would be a nightmare. I'd rather just go to the damn office if that was happening. But we're very lucky that's not the case for us.
As far as we know, not
there
to be
you
too
go.
Orwellian or paranoid. Yeah, for me personally, I prefer it because I keep late hours. I don't sleep as much as the average person, so my schedule's all over the place, and I quite enjoy it. We're a special case. Probably we have known for a long time that if anybody bothered to check our search histories on our work machinery, they would find some dark, disturbing things because of the nature of our vocation. But I love the way that we are segueing here to the big fear. Someone recently told me something quite insightful. They said, when you are working from home, you're not really, what's happening is that you're just now having your job invade your home. And for millions of people around the world, some of whom are listening today, that's not just a thought experiment anymore. And this leads us to the story that you dug up, Matt, which, to your credit, my old dear friend, is something that you have been talking about since like the week we fucking met all those years ago.
I guess it's true.
It is. You told me.
We did, yeah, and it was when we were originally searching for the weird stuff that, as you said, shows up in our search histories and the websites that we end up on. for way too long because we have to read the entire thing. And sometimes other parts of that website are probably not safe for work, but hey, too bad. That's what we do. So I'm gonna change it up a little bit. So with this in mind, the concept of work invading our home, it's the question is it just your work that is now being done at your home, or is it somebody from your work or something from your work that is physically looking at what you're doing, watching, like Noel said, keystrokes that you type in, clicks, maybe the number of clicks, maybe even having access to your camera or your microphone? That would be a little disturbing to imagine that somebody in some group at your office is keeping track of that. Well, that's what the Joint Research Councils and the European Commission and all kinds of other things like the UK's all-party parliamentary group, they want to know. They're looking into it. They're interested because there's lots and lots of concern from the collective of individuals who are aware of this kind of technology existing. And they put out some reports, and that's what we're talking about today. You can go to theregister.com and you can read an article titled "Workplace Surveillance Booming During Pandemic, Destroying Trust in Employers." That's trust in employers. The trust of the employee is what's being destroyed here. Okay, so if you go through this, you can read about the Joint Research Councils who have put out a report titled "Electronic Monitoring and Surveillance in the Workplace." This is something you can access. You can find it, especially if you go to that Register article. You can just click through and actually look at the thing. You can see an abstract to download the sucker. And within this report, guys, it's way more prevalent than I thought. We've discussed before the monitoring of kind of the gig economy just by the sheer nature of what that means, right? It's a task that goes into a marketplace, then someone from the gig economy comes in and picks up that task. So the person who sent the task in wants to know what's happening. You know, how of these 10 steps, which one are we at right now? How long has it taken? How efficient is this? Now that one person from the gig economy, we can now rate that person depending on how well they did with that one task, and we can predict how they will function on the next task that they're assigned, right? And so on and so forth, building an entire structure of just people trying to get things done because everybody needs to make a little bit of money, or as much money as we can, right?
Gotta get those coupons, man. It's the race. Who gets the most coupons before you die? You know what I mean? Neck and neck.
That's right. So you can imagine something we've discussed before on this podcast very recently, Ben. I believe we just talked about Amazon's Mechanical Turk system.
Yes.
Which is the thing that they have in place that monitors that very thing, right? How well is an employee doing? The only problem is this is human-directed AI functional technology, where it is a computer that is actually looking at all of the data and then sometimes making a decision about how well someone is performing. And as is the case there with some workforces, the AI is actually making the decision to send an email to an actual human employee that says you are no longer needed here. That is not always the case with many of these, because we're also talking about Uber, we're talking about Upwork, we're talking about lots and lots of different companies and systems, right? Mm-hmm. The thing that so that exists, right? That whole thing, monitoring how someone within the gig economy is functioning and like really looking at what everything they're doing while they're on the job. The other thing is employees like us, Ben, Noel, and myself, and Paul, and Alexis, looking at us and seeing what we're doing on a day-to-day basis by monitoring things like Microsoft Teams and Google Workspace and Slack and checking to see how often we are responding, how long it takes for us to respond to an email, let's say, how many different meetings we have, what our schedules look like, keeping track of when we are logged in, if our computer is actually on or if our screen is locked. It's insane the amount of stuff that can be tracked and looked at from somebody who essentially holds the keys to one of those enterprise accounts. Sorry, it just really freaks me out.
Yeah, it's super freaky. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I do a decent amount of work on my personal phone. I research a lot on my phone, my personal iPad. I do emails on my phone. I do our intercompany chat. I don't really go into my office or my studio unless I'm needing to do stuff that requires recording or a full screen situation, or I often will, kind of split my time between several different devices, some of which belong to me. And, we use Microsoft Teams, but not like a lot. It doesn't, I don't know. Do the companies have to acknowledge that they're doing this? Or is it just something that's been kind of discovered little by little?
It's often in your contract, and it will be a simple paragraph that just states the company reserves the right to monitor what you do with the equipment that it gives you.
Yeah, and this is more important for some industries than others. Consider industries wherein individual employees may generate a lot of patents or new research. Sure. If you are an engineer who creates something new and innovative and you did it on a company machine with company equipment, then of course they're going to want, their VIG, and they rightly deserve it. But yeah, it's usually lumped in a contract. If you are going to be quote unquote told, it's going to be lumped in with that kind of statement, which is like the reason why if I, for instance, this is the opposite of something productive like engineering, but if I, for instance, wrote a novel on a work machine and it became like the next Song of Ice and Fire or something, then there's a pretty valid legal argument that could be made, if our job were to be kind of evil, that they own a piece of it because these weren't their ideas, but these were their pieces of equipment. This is real. The camera thing especially, I believe in the UK, first, Microsoft will snitch at you at work like never before. Like Matt said, you got no idea. But I know that in the UK, a pretty comprehensive study or pretty thorough study found that camera technology in particular had exploded. 6 months ago, about 5% of people were being monitored if they were working from home by their company via camera. Now that number is at 13%. And and now in the UK, 32% of people are being monitored in some way, if not cameras.
Matt, isn't the takeaway of some of this probe that this is bad? This is actually anti-productive?
Yeah. Yeah, because all of this is a way for the employer to see which employees are doing great, which ones need improvement, which ones are going to get those sweet bonuses for Christmas and Boxing Day, which ones are, maybe on the outs, or they need a performance enhancement plan or whatever the hell companies call something, whatever it is.
Pippi Longstocking.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that's the concept, right? But when each individual human employee knows that this kind of thing is happening, it may in fact make our productivity take a hit, because it's almost like it's not almost like there is a resentment towards that kind of helicopter parenting that's being done through via our computers, by our computers. And, we're in a movement right now. I keep thinking back to several voicemails that we've gotten. We're in a movement right now where people are choosing not to go back to these specific office jobs for various reasons. But, this is just, you can just add this one to the to the mixtape of the reasons that people don't want to do that crap anymore.
And I mean, again, we're really lucky, us in particular, in our type of industry, because it is results driven. We have specific metrics that we have to meet. We have certain pieces of content that we're scheduled to produce every single week. And until the moment we fail to deliver, no one's really going to mess with us. At least that's my perhaps naive perception. But to me, I kind of bank on that, and it makes me
This
feel.
is me knocking on wood.
That's fair. Absolutely. I mean,
in
of
case.
course, but it also, to me, from the perspective of like, we oversee people, guys. We're executive producers, and we work with teams, and I wouldn't want anybody on my team to feel like I'm up there, up in their business in that way. In fact, Portugal, as a country, just passed a law that makes it illegal for a boss to text or call an employee after hours. And I think that's something that's a little more empowering for the employee than this kind of crap.
Well, that's really great.
it.
That's work-life balance stuff, right? And that's the kind of thing that makes a job enjoyable or not. If you can turn the thing off and go on with your life, and then turn it back on when you need to.
I think, yes, I think that's generally true for most people. But for me personally, I like, I don't know. Well, I'm probably the worst example, but I'm pretty into this stuff. Like I kind of live it. So I want to know what happens when it happens. I don't save stuff for the swim back. Points to
that's your
anybody who
choice,
gets that
right?
reference. Yeah.
That's
and
yeah.
And so what Portugal is saying is, it quickly can become abusive, which is absolutely true. And that should be a matter of personal choice. Now, we also have to point out for anybody who is listening who is not currently in the U.S. or familiar with it, the U.S.'s policy toward things like vacation is it's cartoonish. You know what I mean? My friends in Europe are horrified when they hear the way vacations or things like paternity or maternity or parental leave work. So this is probably even more of a necessary law in the U.S. than it is in Portugal. But still, it's the future, and the monitoring thing is. It's funny that not funny, but it's odd that it becomes a contentious issue when we're talking about workplace monitoring or quote unquote workplace monitoring, because it's only another extension, a smaller extension of the constant surveillance and monitoring that's occurring regardless of what laws are on the books. COINTELPRO never ended. Mass surveillance is just too powerful to not do it. It's the hottest thing.
Yep. Yes. And guys, I know I could talk about this for a long time. I know you could too. I want to leave you with a couple of statements from the actual report that we mentioned at the top here that this Register article is referring to, just to kind of leave us with this, have us think about it, and we can hear, hopefully from you, just what you've experienced perhaps when it comes to surveillance in your own workplace. Here it is. Ben, you're going to love one of these statements because it's basically it's your mantra, like when that it has been every time we talk about anything like this. It's in this report. Here we go. Quote, pervasive monitoring and target setting technologies, in particular, are associated with pronounced negative impacts on mental and physical well-being as workers experience the extreme pressure of constant, real-time micromanagement and automated assessment. AI is transforming work and working lives across the country in ways that have plainly outpaced or avoid the existing regimes for regulation.
Yeah.
With increasing reliance on technology to drive economic recovery at home and provide a leadership role abroad, it is clear that the government must bring forward robust proposals for AI regulation to meet these challenges. So they're saying, what is it, Ben?
Technology always outpaces legislation.
And
Same
we're
as
just
it ever was.
Same as it ever was. And, that's the UK saying, we got to do something about this. We know we do, but we're not sure yet.
Right.
There you go.
Let's form some committees to figure out the meetings. You know what I mean? And then maybe we can. Yeah, you're absolutely. I mean, that is an accurate quote, and we'll see. We'll see again. Speaking of mantras, we'll see again before civilization gets to a post-work environment. There is a very high probability that it will become what is called a post-worker environment, meaning that the the robots and the AI can do amazing things, or the machine consciousness can do amazing things for people, but no one can afford to engage with it because no one has a job anymore. Imagine the story of John Henry writ large for almost 8 billion people at once.
That's cool. We'll just hang out in the metaverse and play Pinochle with our robot pals.
Yeah, we're a lot of fun at parties.
All right, and with that, imagine the party where it is the three of us and you. What are you going to say about this stuff? What are you going to say? Send it our way.